So nice to see you guys again. This is such a treat. So we're having another session on empathy today. I wanted to go into the experience of empathy, and I'm currently empathizing with everybody who's growing a beard and the experience of itchiness. I think women think it's itchy if they feel men's beard from the outside. It's itchy from the inside too. So I'm still getting used to this, but this is my shout out for Men's Health November, especially for men's mental health. So that's the theme. So empathy is something I've kind of been pausing and lingering and stretching this one out a little bit, just because it's so it's close to my heart. I mean, it is close to the heart, empathy, that topic, and it's something that is worth spending quite a lot of time on. So I'm going to go into that in more detail today, but as usual, we can start with some meditation, but I wanted to give this initial meditation a bit of an empathy spin, in that we'll meditate also on the feeling of receiving kindness from someone else. So in the meditation, what we'll do is we'll just think about someone who has been kind to us in our life, your choice. But what we're going to be doing in the meditation is focusing on the inner experience of feeling that someone else is kind to us, and just sort of trying to notice that, because we all we know we like people to be nice to us. That's not a surprise, right? But we don't necessarily always pause and notice exactly how it feels internally in our body when we feel like someone is kind to us or nice to us. And it's really important, something important, very, very, very important to notice in terms of our internal experience, because it's one of the things that makes, once we realize how nice it feels to feel that others are kind to us, then that gives us a bit of positive feedback to cultivate that. And as I'll explain, so much of it is in our minds, right? If the whole world is kind to you, if the whole world is cruel to you, so much of that is in our minds. It really just depends on how we wake up. We feel like the world is great. We feel like the world is terrible. Our minds can change things instantly, in an instant. But it is possible to always get back to this experience and use that as a foundation for building our good hearts towards the people around us. All right. So for our meditation, as usual, what we're going to do is just, we're all seated here. So just finding a comfortable position. My wife, when she guides meditation, she actually spends a long time just guiding people through stretching, like a mini yoga class. I'm not going to do that, but, I always tend to stretch my neck a little bit. And we can accumulate a lot of tension just even without realizing it. Just our days get busy. We're doing a lot of stuff. There's things on our minds. So these physical signals that it's okay to relax and unwind and decompress, they're powerful, right? So we give ourselves these physical signals. We can give ourselves the mental signals as well. So we begin just with a deep breath, just in and out. And recognize that even breathing is stretching, right? Breathing is stretching inside, where a lot of that tension lies. So deep breath in and out. And then another breath, just inviting ourselves to relax. It's just an invitation. And we can ask ourselves, what is important right now? And just ask, open question. Only we can answer that. What is important for us right now? And we can begin to feel inside our body, just becoming aware of this body that's with us all the time, but we may ignore most of the time. We may not be paying much attention to it, like a puppy that we're dragging around on a string, but not paying attention to. We may be ignoring our body. So we pay attention to it now. And then in particular, we can become aware, we can think about an experience where someone was kind to us, or we can think of a person who we feel has been kind to us. Anyone at all, person or animal even, but someone who's been kind to us. And we just bring them to mind, and then we focus on the feeling that arises when we recollect their kindness. Ask ourselves, where do we feel this in our body? The memory of kindness, the memory of someone who's kind to us. And then we can relax our concentration and rise from that meditation. Kind of had to pull myself out of that meditation because I feel like I probably could have stayed in that for a long time. Get off schedule. I don't know if any of you want to share if that meditation worked for you or not, but any subjective experience that you felt from meditating on kindness? Anybody wants to share off mute or not?
So when you started to talk about it, I started to think uh, who I think has been kind to me, and there have been a lot of folks. And when I started to remember how that felt, so I remembered that immediately a sense of gratitude came into my heart. And usually that happens with me, that whenever I see someone being kind to anyone, that usually happens with me, that I immediately get a little bit teary eyed and I start to feel that someone didn't have to do that for me or for anyone, but they went out of the way and they did it. So, and that really makes me feel very much human. That's such a beautiful feeling, that you just care for someone and you're just being kind. There's no malice behind it. There's no ill intentions behind that, and that I feel is really powerful. And you usually see that pets doing it, babies doing it, but as we grow up, people don't do that for you. So when someone does that for you, it's really beautiful.
Thanks so much for sharing. Anybody else want to share experience on that? Or
I don't. That's a great way to explain it. By the way, I don't think I could do any better there. I think the only idea that I might add that I was able to find through that meditation was a really deep level of relaxation. And I think maybe it was because of this idea of someone being kind, that it's a gift. It's a gift of acceptance, kind of in a way that someone can let go. And if you think about some people and some of the things that they're going through, it could be an amazing gift for someone because of the way that pains and stresses manifest inside of folks' bodies or just in their day-to-day life.
yeah, absolutely. Obviously, any other comments are welcome, but we're running thin on the anonymity at this point in the meeting. This is the challenge with small groups; it ceases to be anonymous very quickly. My inner experience was that relaxation thing, and that I think is the thing that really strikes me, is that feeling of relaxation. And often, we come to meditation class to relax, right? And that's the idea, trigger the sense of relaxation. But it's interesting that also feeling like we're receiving kindness triggers a very similar feeling. There's a similar feeling of just, okay, I'm not in a threatening situation. I can relax, I can expand a bit. There's this feeling of warmth. For me, I feel it very much in my chest. I don't know, I always sort of have some association up there. And so that similarity is interesting to me, right? That similarity between relaxing through meditation and relaxing through feeling that we're receiving some kindness from the people around us. It's interesting because we really we crave that very much. And one of the things that came up for me in meditation, I just came to my mind, my mother, right? And just getting a hug from my mother. And there's a similar feeling getting a hug from my wife. And what's interesting is, I spent a long time as a monk, right? There's 15 years where basically I was really actually trying not to hug, and not have much physical contact. And there's a kind of an austerity there, right? You're It's deprivation. You're depriving yourself of some human, normal, totally normal human emotional contact, physical touch. And why would you do that? Like, why would somebody choose to do that? Because it doesn't seem very kind, doesn't seem very, very comfortable, because you realize it's nourishing, right? It's emotionally nourishing for us in our hearts, and it relaxes us. That's what meditation's about, right? Relaxation. Why wouldn't you do everything you possibly could to help you to be relaxed? And, it's an interesting question to ponder. But if I think about it, the idea of getting together with friends, right? After work or on the weekends, or get together with people you haven't seen, there is that feeling of relaxation. Oh, so good to see you again, right? Today I reconnected with an old high school friend I hadn't seen in 25 years. And there's just this nice feeling of sort of letting your guard down, and all of the tensions, around work, and the armoring that we had, the posturing and the armoring about I'm supposed to be like this and they're like that. And, I was reminding myself, I actually had to remind myself in the meeting, because it was a Zoom meeting like every other meeting. Okay, this is a friend. I'm not interviewing her. I'm not, this is not like a business meeting or whatever. It's just like, this is this person. We've had this long history. Let's just share openly about what the last 25 years have been like, to sort of have that emotional connection, that release, that relaxation. So, when we get together with friends, there's a feeling of kindness, right? These people don't want anything from us. We're just having fun together. Whereas I think in a lot of our life, as Abhishek was pointing to, right, there's this, adults are not often like this. Adults can pet other people's dogs, right? But you wouldn't make physical contact with another adult, right? So there's this funny asymmetry where there's a bit of a distance, right? And they're all strangers, right? And we tend to live in a world of strangers. And I feel like, imagine what our society was like 5,000 years ago, or 2,000 years ago, or 50 years ago, if it's thinking about traditional societies where we're all living in villages, right? And everybody knows each other, right? And there's 200 people who live there and they all know each other, right? There's this sense of warmth and like being in a place, and the people, and there's a connection, and you've got your place and so forth. But nowadays there's a lot of strangers, right? We move around, we're shopping in places where we don't recognize anybody, and it feels like that's one of the characteristics of the modern world, is so many strangers. And that can be very emotionally challenging for us, I think, because we're living in a world of strangers instead of living in a world of friends where we know everybody. If I reflect on even the word monk, for example, what does that mean? It comes from the word mono, means like one, like solo. And if you think about what's that experience about, partly it's about if you're isolated, right, from others, it's not that you stop needing emotional nourishment at all. It's not that you stop needing, that sense of relaxation at all. It's just that you have to figure out how to generate that from inside, right? Generate that from inside as opposed to from outside. And normally there's these external things, going to hang out with friends, or getting a hug, or drinking alcohol or something like that. All these things that sort of triggers that help us to relax. But if you're turning away from most of those, you've just got to figure out a way to relax internally and make that same reaction happen, that same relaxation response happen. Get your pacify your sympathetic nervous system, turn your parasympathetic nervous system on, stimulate the vagus nerve, get your whole body in that relaxation mode. You've got to figure out how to do that for yourself. But what's interesting is that even if you've got if you've got a normal social life, you've got friends, family, and all these normal life, we have so many strangers around us, right? And there's so many situations in our life that can cause tension and fear and a sense of distance. Everybody needs this ability from inside to make themselves relaxed. Right? Everybody needs that ability from inside to trigger that same response. So you can go to the grocery store and not feel like you're surrounded by strangers, but in fact, think even the people at the checkout counter are kind, right? I like Abhishek's point of view. they don't have to do that, right? So this is something that I learned. One of the meditations that I learned early on was that everybody is kind to us in different ways, and that's a lot easier to prove in some ways than others. But think about somebody at the grocery store who's at the checkout counter or cleaning up or stocking items in the shelf. Think, yes, they're getting paid. Of course, they're getting paid, but it's a kindness. They're providing a service, right? And at least for myself, when I come to work, I want to be a nice person. I'm actually trying to be a nice person. I'm trying to solve people's problems. And you look at how much customer service is happening, in restaurants and any kind of business. It's, in a sense, you've got real live humans actually trying to be kind in a systematic way. And customer service wouldn't work if it wasn't making use of something that's very natural for human beings, which is to try to be patient and try to be kind to others. And even if people are a little bit impatient, they could be more kind or whatever. They could also be a lot worse, right? Like you have a waitress and she's rude, didn't bring the right thing, wasn't paying attention. Trust me, it could be worse. So, and there's a sense in which even there's a sense in which people can be kind in a direct way, like they actually do something that helps us, right? And if you think about all of the people who are involved in stocking the grocery store shelves, there's the individual people who put things on there, there's the people who run the business of the grocery store, there's all the truckers and so forth who ship things, and then there's the farmers, and you begin to realize there's a lot going on even in there's a chain of interdependencies. There's a whole lot going on, even in one item being the grocery store. And there's a lot of kindness along that way, right? There's a lot of people who are working very hard to try to, do a good job, and we benefit from that, and we can interpret that as a kindness, even if they didn't know us and we didn't know them. Nevertheless, they're producing some value and we're experiencing some value, and that alone is a kindness. And normally we think of that chain of value as being like an economic relationship. Oh, there's some money, everybody got paid a little bit along the way and so forth. But it's not just money, right? It's also, there's an emotional connection. There can be an emotional connection there, but we're the ones that kind of have to turn that on or off. You can go to the grocery store and feel like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. What an amazing system. And imagine somebody who didn't grow up with grocery stores, right? Or didn't grow up with well-stocked grocery stores, and they come into a place where there's just like every imaginable food that you could imagine. Redundant there, but how would they feel? Paradise, right? They would have this feeling like, oh my goodness gracious, there's so much here, there's so much abundance. But what's interesting is that we start taking things for granted really darn fast. And if I can use the example of, of a smartphone, right? You start taking this thing for granted really darn fast. 10 years ago, the fact that there was even a portable phone was amazing. 50 years ago, the fact that there was any kind of phone, that's a miracle, right? So like, what's funny is that society, technology is churning out miracles, right? That you can be wherever you are and talk to somebody on the other side of the country. That's just a flat out miracle, right? But now society is churning out miracles. But what happens is that mentally we get really used to them very quickly, and we start taking them for granted. And we think, oh, well, this one's a little too slow and we need a better one, and we need next year's model. And we've got two amazing capacities as a human being. We've got the capacity to feel kindness and to feel gratitude. And we have the capacity to take things for granted. we have an amazingly rapid ability to take things for granted. I watched a documentary on Netflix a couple of nights ago, Capital in the 21st Century. And there was a researcher on there, Paul Piff, and he did this research study where they had college students. They always involved college students, right? And they sat them down to play Monopoly with one another, and cameras all over, watching them play Monopoly with one another. One of the college students, they gave an advantage. They gave them $2,000 Monopoly dollars at the beginning of the game. The other one, they gave $1,000. One, they gave the ability to roll 2 dice at a time. The other, they gave the ability to roll 1 die at a time. And the person who rolls 2 dice, they move around the board a lot faster than the person who rolls 1 die. And that's important because every time they cross go, they collect $200 instead of $100. And the favored person got the Rolls Royce as their token, and the unfavored person got the little shoe, as the old leather shoe, as their token, right? And so the one person's racing around the board, and they're building hotels, and they're charging rent, and they're collecting money. And it's worth watching the videos of this because they're quite amazing. Like, what happened is that very quickly they start like clunking their piece around the board, making a lot of noise, right? And they start eating more pretzels than the other person, right? Because they have pretzels there. So they're eating more, making noise, waving their arms, talking louder. Like, they measured the volume of them talking, and they were talking louder, right? Sometimes, the poor person would roll the die, and the rich person would just pick up their shoe and move it for them, and they'd start making comments like, "Oh, looks like you didn't make a very good roll there," and they snarky comments and a bit arrogant. And they started to become a little bit rude, right? Actually making a lot of rude comments like, "Oh yeah, looks like you're not so good at Monopoly." And when they asked them at the end of and so they found that they were becoming a bit meaner. Like, the people with this favored situation became a lot meaner. And at the end of the game, they'd always ask the person who won, and coincidentally, the person who won ended up always being the person who had won. It was a flip of a coin that determined who was in which role. So they literally all saw the flip of the coin at the beginning and knew it was. And the person who'd won the favored role always won the game, of course. How could you not win with that kind of advantage? And they asked them at the end, like, why do you think you won? And they would say, well, because I got more properties, more investments, or because I had a lot of lucky rolls and so forth. Not one of the people that they researched said, oh, because I had a lucky flip of the coin. And out of 100 people that they interviewed, not one of them said, oh, it was because of the lucky getting the coin. And so what was interesting is that what they found was that there was this natural association between being better off and feeling that you were better. And so the people who were better off naturally felt like they were better, right? I've been playing Monopoly since I was a kid, and I'm an investor, so I just know about these things. So just we translate being better off to being better naturally. And when you're better than others, where's your gratitude? I'd like to thank all the little people who helped get me where I am today. There's this very interesting sense of ourself as being elevated, and that is innate. And that is just so natural as a human being. We don't need to feel bad, because literally every one of these humans reacted in the same way when they had a lot of good fortune. They would, in a sense, they were taking it for granted, their situation, and not feeling very fortunate, and actually feeling a little arrogant. So what does that mean? Does that mean humans are all corrupt? Does that mean that they just got a bunch of very corrupt people there? Does that mean, well, we're better than that. We're not as, we wouldn't be like that. We'd be nicer. That's what I tend to think. Well, I bet if I was in there, I'd be a lot nicer. I've been training and being nice for a long time. Been nice since I was little. In a sense, when I think that to myself, I'm basically saying I'm better than the people in that game. It's interesting, right? maybe I'm just better off. Maybe I was just born with kind of a nice personality, kind of laid back. Maybe it was just the flip of the coin, right? And that comes to this idea of a growth mindset. Like, do you have a growth mindset that these characteristics are actually built and accumulated, or do you have a fixed mindset that people are just kind of born and some are better than others and so forth? So it's very powerful to try to have a growth mindset and recognize that even our qualities of empathy are something that we can cultivate. And no better way to cultivate a sense of empathy than to feel that others have been kind to us. What happens when you feel that others have been kind to us? What does that do? It makes you feel kindly disposed towards others. It's like another reaction, right? You feel more kindly disposed towards others. So it's important to know about ourselves that there is this tendency to take stuff for granted. There's a tendency to be arrogant, think we're better than others, but it's totally normal. But that means that we need to apply effort to be a nicer person, say, and to not take our good fortune for granted, but to really appreciate our good fortune. And the interesting thing is that if you appreciate your good fortune and you feel like others have been kind to you and you're fortunate throughout your life, and you all, for example, have been enormously kind by giving me a chance to teach meditation, because it's been 10 years since I taught meditation. It's only because people keep showing up that I get a chance to teach meditation. So you all have been enormously kind to me. And so when you think that way, what does it do? It makes you want to be kind back to other people. It's just this really cool little reflex in our mind that if you feel like you're surrounded by miracles, like literally miracles, the fact that I've got this weird microphone device in front of me and some laptop, and I can communicate to people around the world, and there's people who are willing to listen, and my parents taught me this language, and how much did we get from our parents, and how much did we get from our teachers, and how many different opportunities are arising, how many miracles are there around us? There's this famous quote from Einstein. Sometimes Einstein gets okay, I've got to read your chat because you guys are prolific. Oh, that's nice. Nice comments. So Jill is saying someone said of George Bush that he was born on third base and thought he hit a home run. And then when you heard that, you realized it was true of your thinking as well. It's powerful, right? The quote that I was thinking of from Einstein was that either everything is a miracle or nothing is a miracle, right? Either the whole world is a miracle or nothing is a miracle. And so it's that way of thinking where we're experiencing good fortune all the time because of this internal, and that just, it changes our way of thinking. And what happens is you relax, you feel warm inside. There's this feeling of warmth, relaxation, appreciation for kindness, and then it naturally predisposes us to act in a similar way as well. So that was what I wanted to encourage, basically. And you can take it as a meditation on kindness wherever you go. That literally every single thing you see has a history. Came from somewhere. There's somebody who built this house, right? There's a person who tried to do a really good job with the spackling, tried to do a really good job with the painting, tried to do a really good job with installing the windows, right? Everything around us is in these days, it's a product of human kindness. We live in a very human created environment. And so literally you can live in a house that is a creation of kindness, that is a manifestation of people's kindness, right? Or you can live in a world where nothing's ever quite good enough and it literally is like a switch that we flip in our mind. But it takes some practice, takes some energy, because you have to reinforce these tendencies to think how fortunate I am. Everything I'm seeing is a miracle. The people around me are kind. But then you switch back. Of course, naturally, we switch back to our instinctive way of thinking. That's perfectly fine. But then we come back, we practice again. And that's why, there are classes on meditation. That's why it's a practice of meditation, because it takes some, settling into. And what we're doing is we're reinforcing these patterns of thinking that reinforce this internal experience of good fortune, relaxation, connection, a sense that we're not threatened by the people around us. Because otherwise, the default is you live in a world of strangers where very likely, very possibly, they're all a threat. There's a very small difference between a stranger and a threat. You know, and in a sense, a stranger is like almost a threat, you know, and so there's a little bit of that tension, that stress hormone, that's those stress hormones that are flowing, as opposed to these relaxation hormones that are flowing. And so just from a purely selfish point of view, it is super powerful to meditate on love. And the way to kickstart that is feeling that we're receiving kindness, and a feeling of gratitude kickstarts that mind of love. And it's the most selfish thing you can possibly do, is to meditate on love. And so we should just go ahead and do that, and create that positive feedback loop to encourage ourselves internally. Okay, so let's take a little bit more time while we're here, just to do just that, and to meditate on, again, on that sense of kindness, that as others have been kind to us, and that we're basically experiencing a lot of kindness and miracles. So, okay, again, let's just settle in with another deep breath in and out. We see the interplay between our body and our mind, our way of thinking and our physical state. They play back and forth between each other. Breathing in again, just invite a sense of relaxation, let our body melt a little bit. Again, we bring to mind that person or persons we felt have been kind to us. But this time, if we want, we can extend that out. Anyone, just extending, contemplating others who've been kind, other situations where we see benefit, recognizing the kindness that's all around us. And we just absorb in this for a while. for the last minute or so, we can think, even in a short time like this, the direction of our life shifts a little bit, changes. Our mind moves in different directions, and those changes can compound and magnify over time. So what would the ultimate results, best results for ourselves and others be that could arise from our time here? Just ponder that for a few moments. And then we can open our eyes and rise from our meditation.